Our next speaker, very distinguished speaker, is Dr. Norman Rosenthal, who was for 20 years a senior researcher at the National Institute of Mental Health. He was the first to describe what is called Seasonal Affective Disorder, or SAD, the effect of light on mood. He is the author of several best-selling books, is clinical professor of psychiatry at Georgetown University Medical School, and has conducted research on TM and Iraq veterans with PTSD. Dr. Norman Rosenthal, thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, you have heard a lot of fascinating bits of information, and I'll just try to pull some of these threads together. TM, as we know, is an ancient practice that has been very cleverly adapted so that we can do it every day, twice a day in our modern lives without much stress at all, and in fact very enjoyably so. But there have been now 50 years of research in this technique, and the results are astonishing. And I should say that I'm not a TM insider. I've been in many worlds of research, pharmacological, therapeutic, and various kinds, and I came to this really in recent years. But as I delved into the research, I came to scoff and remained to pray, you could say. I was immediately intrigued and fascinated at the excellence of the science and the large number of peer-review publications. One of the fascinating things about TM is that the benefits of these twice-daily meditation sessions actually carry over into everyday life. Study after study, for example, has shown a reduction in blood pressure. And so imagine you've meditated in the morning, but 6 hours later your blood pressure is still lower than it was a couple of months ago. What this does is it reflects the steadying effects of TM on the fight or flight responses, also known as the sympathetic nervous system. So we're getting this kind of soothing effect carrying through the day, and of more consequence even than blood pressure is its protective effects on diseases of the cardiovascular system, which, as Dr. Hagelin mentioned, are huge killers, greatly decreased in many studies by TM, and as you wouldn't be surprised, TM has actually shown in more than one study to prolong life itself. But for me as a psychiatrist, one of the really intriguing things about TM is its potential to help people psychologically, to relieve stress and distress in all the many forms that it occurs. For example, many studies have shown that it reduces anxiety, and anxiety disorders could really be considered one of the major maladies of our age. The National Institute of Mental Health estimates that 40 million adults in any given year have some form of anxiety disorder. That's 1 in 7 adults. And these people feel an internal sense of their alarm bells ringing, even though there's no genuine stress. So they're constantly feeling like they're under some kind of emergency signal, and there's actually nothing that's causing it. But as you can imagine, this really drains their resources, emotional and physical, and TM can really help that. Now, one form of anxiety disorder that we've heard a lot about today is post-traumatic stress disorder. And this, of course, has very much come into the news because its cost, both in human terms and financially, is enormous. According to one estimate of the more than 1.6 million military personnel deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan in the last decade, at least 1 in 7 suffers from some form of PTSD. Of these, about half never seek treatment, probably because of the stigma, and of those who do seek treatment, at least half do not get adequate care. Very difficult to treat. So we did a pilot study looking at the effects of TM on PTSD, and in fact, one of the young men you saw in the video, right over here, David George, was one of our study participants. He heard the radio ad and he thought, what the heck, I've got nothing to lose, and joined up to participate in the study. In any event, another young man who comes to mind is somebody who was a gunner on a Humvee in Iraq and was exposed to many explosions. He was not himself fortunately physically injured, but he saw his buddies getting blown up and had to actually assemble their body parts, and it was a terribly traumatic thing. And when he came back, he suffered PTSD. Now, as Dr. Grosswald mentioned, this is a condition where there's hypervigilance. You feel like you're going to be attacked at any moment. There are flashbacks, memories that are very vivid. There are nightmares. Your sleep is disrupted. For example, in this young man's case, every time he went over a pothole in the road, and in Washington, D.C., there are a lot of potholes in the road, he would re-experience and imagine that he'd gone over an explosive device. And he would wake up at night in a nightmare, drenched with sweat, and in one instance, he actually had his girlfriend in a chokehold, imagining that she was the enemy attacking him in the middle of the night. He took to drinking to numb his pain, and signed up for our study really as a sort of last resort. But bit by bit, as the TM began to work its magic, and it feels like magic, of course it's not magic, it's EEG coherence, it's physiological changes, it's all kinds of amazing things, it's the secretion of the hormone prolactin that has a soothing effect, it's many actual physical things, but if you don't know all the details of what's going on, it really feels transformational. And he began to experience this transformation. He settled down, he steadied. We were thrilled, and we think this is a hugely promising potential avenue for treatment of this very hard-to-treat condition. But before I leave, I have to say that I could tell you many other stories, not just of PTSD, of anxiety, of depression, of people under overwhelming stress. The potential of this treatment, of this approach, for psychiatry is just beginning. It's just enormous. The early research is very exciting. And as a psychiatrist, somebody who tries to treat people with medications and therapy, I am fully aware that they are far from perfect. The idea that we've got at our disposal this new approach that can, in a powerful and simple and profound way, help people for the most part on their own, without ongoing input by mental health professionals, I think is very exciting, especially in this era of diminishing resources. Thank you.